Welcome to my channel. I am Ben. Today, we step into a chilling journey where blood ties, thought to be sacred, turned into nightmares beyond imagination. Picture a peaceful Christmas morning, children's laughter circling a glowing tree, or an Easter afternoon. A colorful table lined with dyed eggs and flowers. Yet within moments, joy vanishes, replaced by gunfire, screams, and a silence that chills to the bone. American history has witnessed such tragedies. Family massacres where the killers were not strangers, but fathers, mothers, or sons. These were not meaningless outbursts of rage, but acts fueled by resentment, radical belief, or twisted obsession. In this story, we will explore 5 of the most horrifying cases, from the father in Arkansas who murdered 16 during Christmas, to the teenage brothers in Oklahoma who turned a dream of fame into a cold-blooded slaughter. Each case leaves us with a haunting question: what drives a home into becoming a place of annihilation? And where is the fragile line between love and bloodshed? The story begins in the small town of Dover, Arkansas, in late December 1987. Inside a wooden house deep in the woods, Ronald Gene Simmons, aged 60, a retired U.S. Air Force sergeant, prepared to carry out one of the largest family massacres in American history. On the surface, Simmons had once been seen as disciplined, but beneath that exterior lay years of darkness. He was authoritarian, controlling, and obsessed with the belief that his family had betrayed him. In his notes, investigators later found words filled with hatred, declaring that everyone was against him and that everything must end. On December 22nd, Simmons's eldest son, Gene, arrived with his wife and young child. They were killed almost immediately, shot and strangled upon entering the home. Over the next several days, other children and grandchildren came to celebrate Christmas. One by one, Simmons lured them inside, murdering them with gunshots or strangulation, then hiding their bodies within the house or burying them shallowly in the yard. By December 28th, a total of 16 lives had been taken, 14 of them Simmons's own flesh and blood. Investigators who entered the scene described the house as a living mausoleum. The Christmas tree still glowed faintly in the corner, while the air was thick with the stench of death. But Simmons was not finished. He drove into town, stormed into a law office and another business, killing a stranger and wounding others before calmly surrendering. During interrogation, he showed no remorse. Prosecutors concluded this was not a sudden eruption of anger, but a plan cultivated over years. The trial was swift. Simmons refused to appeal his death sentence and even requested that the execution be expedited. On June 25, 1990, he was executed by lethal injection. The case shocked America, not only for the staggering number of victims, but for the cold calculation and ultimate betrayal. A father and grandfather turning Christmas, the season of love and reunion, into a season of death. Criminologists later analyzed his behavior, noting traits of antisocial personality disorder, combined with paranoia and festering resentment that culminated in the annihilation of his own bloodline. To this day, the image of flickering Christmas lights inside the Simmons home remains an unsettling symbol, a reminder that even the most sacred days can be transformed into hell by the darkness within a single man. Hamilton, Ohio, March 30th, 1975. While the city enjoyed the warmth of spring and prepared for Easter celebrations, the Ruppert family home became the site of one of the deadliest family massacres in American history. James Urban Ruppert, 41 years old, was described by neighbors as quiet and withdrawn. Yet, inside, he carried years of resentment, living in the shadow of his older brother Leonard, more successful, more confident, and favored by their mother. James's failures in work, financial struggles, and social isolation turned the holiday of renewal into the trigger for violence. That afternoon, 11 family members gathered around the Easter table. Among them were elders and children as young as 4, believing it would be a day of warmth. But James silently retrieved a rifle and 2 handguns. Without a word, he opened fire. The sharp crack of gunshots echoed through the house. Mingling with cries of panic, James moved from room to room, methodically shooting his relatives until none remained alive. When police arrived, the scene horrified even veteran officers. Bodies lay scattered across couches and floors, Easter baskets still beside them, dyed eggs shattered across the carpet. One officer called it one of the most chilling sights I have ever seen. An entire family erased in mere minutes. At trial, James was found not guilty by reason of insanity for 9 counts, but guilty of 2 murders. He was sentenced to life in prison and remained incarcerated until his death in 2022 at the age of 88. The Easter Sunday massacre left a scar that never healed in Hamilton. Residents struggled to comprehend how a holiday devoted to life and faith had become a symbol of despair. Psychologists later noted that James exhibited signs of severe depression, jealousy, and festering resentment. With no outlet, the pressure built until it exploded in bloodshed. What made this case especially haunting was the contrast, the pastel colors of celebration, the laughter of children, followed by sudden silence and death. It serves as a reminder that even in moments of apparent peace, darkness can lurk behind the family door. On the night of July 22, 2015, a faint call reached the 911 center in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. The trembling voice of a 13-year-old girl whispered, "There was blood. There were knives, and her family was being slaughtered." When police arrived, they could not have imagined that the house would reveal one of the deadliest family massacres in the state's history. Inside the Bever home lay 5 bodies, parents David and April, along with their 3 children: Daniel, aged 12, Christopher, aged 7, and Victoria, aged 5. The caller, Crystal, though gravely wounded, with multiple stab wounds, managed to crawl outside and summon help. The youngest child, Autumn, only 2 years old, was found crying upstairs but alive. The killers were not intruders. They were the family's own sons, Ruppert, aged 18, and Michael, aged 16. Investigators discovered that the brothers had plotted the murders long in advance. Their computers were filled with material about serial killers, notes on killing techniques, and even ambitions of surpassing records of body counts. The most chilling detail was the motive. Ruppert told investigators that they wanted fame, to be remembered alongside infamous killers in history. There was no personal grudge, no sudden rage, just a cold ambition built on blood to become legends of violence. The trial drew national attention. Ruppert received multiple life sentences without parole. Michael, though a minor, it was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole only after 225 years, effectively ensuring he would never leave prison. The Broken Arrow community was left devastated. Vigils were held, and a memorial park was later built on the site of the Bever family home. For many, the pain was not only in the number of lives lost, but in the realization that the killers were the sons of the very family they destroyed. The Broken Arrow murders revealed another dimension of family massacres, not resentment, but a twisted thirst for notoriety. It reminds us that, even within seemingly ordinary homes, dark obsessions can grow unchecked, turning ambition into monstrosity. On the night of February 26, 1995, the quiet suburb of Salisbury Township, Pennsylvania, was shattered by a crime that shocked the nation. Inside the Freeman family home, 3 victims were found dead: Father Dennis, Mother Brenda, and their youngest son Eric, only 11 years old. The killers were not outsiders, but their own teenage sons, Brian, aged 17, and David, aged 16, assisted by their cousin, 18-year-old Ben Birdwell. In the months leading up to the murders, the Freeman brothers had drifted into a dangerous subculture. They experimented with drugs, shaved their heads, tattooed swastikas on their skin, and openly expressed hatred toward their parents for the strict Jehovah's Witness upbringing. Psychologists later concluded that repression and a lack of communication had turned generational conflict into festering resentment. That February evening, as the family prepared for bed, the 3 young men struck. Dennis and Brenda were beaten and stabbed repeatedly, while Eric, only a child, was killed as he tried to flee. Investigators described the scene as one of the most gruesome they had ever encountered. Walls smeared with blood, furniture overturned in the frenzy of violence. The killers fled, sparking a nationwide manhunt. Days later, they were captured in Michigan while driving a truck. Newspapers splashed their faces across front pages: cold stares, vacant eyes, swastika tattoos, accompanied by chilling slogans of hate. At trial, Brian and David Freeman received life sentences. Birdwell was sentenced to the same. Yet in February 2024, both brothers were resentenced to 60 years to life, making them eligible for parole in 2055. For the community, however, the scars remain permanent. Salisbury Township fell silent in mourning. Vigils were held. Schools organized discussions on the dangers of youth radicalization. To many, this was not just the tragedy of a single family, but a warning about how extremist ideology can destroy even the strongest of blood ties. What made the Freeman murders especially haunting was the youth of the perpetrators. At only 16 and 17, teenagers, once seen riding bikes down neighborhood streets, had transformed into executioners of their own parents. It is a reminder that when radical beliefs take root in fragile minds, a home can turn into a place of death. On December 25, 1929, while America celebrated Christmas, rural Stokes County, North Carolina, became the setting of a tragedy that would haunt generations. The Lawson family, once seen as ordinary and hardworking, suddenly turned into a symbol of death and enduring mystery. Charles Davis Lawson, a tobacco farmer, was not wealthy, but was known as diligent. Just days before Christmas, he took his family into town to buy new clothes and have their photograph taken, a rare treat for farmers of that era. Neighbors thought it was holiday preparation, but later, many came to believe it was a grim farewell, dressing his family in their final garments. On Christmas morning, Charles armed himself with a shotgun. His 2 daughters, Carrie and Maybelle, were shot as they walked to visit relatives. He placed their bodies in the tobacco barn, crossing their arms as if in a distorted funeral ritual. Returning home, he shot his wife Fanny. The children screamed, but Charles methodically killed them one by one: Marie, James, Raymond, and infant Mary Lou, only 4 months old. Only his teenage son Arthur survived, spared simply because Charles had sent him on an errand earlier that day. When neighbors and lawmen gathered, They heard the final shot from the woods. Charles had turned the gun on himself, leaving behind scraps of letters, but no clear explanation. The scene was haunting. The Christmas tree still glowed in the corner, unopened gifts beneath it, while the air reeked of blood and gunpowder. Thousands of curious onlookers flocked to the Lawson home in the following days, turning it into a macabre attraction. Speculation abounded. A head injury from a prior accident, undiagnosed mental illness, even rumors of dark family secrets. Yet none of these theories were ever confirmed. The Lawson murders became more than a crime. They entered Southern folklore. Ballads were written, ghost stories told, and even modern podcasts continue to revisit the case. What makes it uniquely haunting is the lack of motive. No clear grudge, no specific reason, just the annihilation of an entire family on the holiest day of the year. Over 90 years later, the Lawson home has crumbled into ruin, but the story endures. It reminds us that beneath the surface of rural peace can lie storms of unimaginable violence, and that sometimes the greatest tragedy is the one that will never have an answer. When examining these crimes, the question arises, why were these 5 cases chosen among hundreds of tragedies? The answer lies in specific criteria. First, is the scale and devastation. From Ronald Gene Simmons, murdering 16 relatives during Christmas week, to James Ruppert wiping out his family on Easter Sunday. The numbers alone shock the conscience and highlight the erasure of entire bloodlines. Second is the social impact. These crimes did not fade into obscurity. In Broken Arrow, a memorial park was built. In Hamilton, Ohio, Easter forever carries the memory of blood and gunfire. The Lawson murders entered Southern folklore, retold in ballads and ghost stories across generations. Third is the symbolic timing. These killings occurred during holidays or family gatherings. Christmas, Easter occasions meant to be sacred became the backdrop for betrayal. The stark contrast between celebration and slaughter deepened the horror. Finally, these cases remind us that even within the home, danger can lurk. This list does not glorify perpetrators. It honors the victims and serves as a warning that resentment, extremism, or obsession can transform love into cold-blooded violence. As this journey comes to an end, one chilling truth remains. The family where we believe we are safest can also become the stage for the most brutal betrayals. Homes once filled with laughter and memories became blood-stained chambers where fathers killed children, sons executed parents, and trust was shattered beyond repair. Ronald Gene Simmons turned Christmas into a season of death. James Ruppert replaced Easter hymns with gunfire. The Bever Brothers transformed a thirst for notoriety into slaughter. Brian and David Freeman showed the destructive pull of extremist ideology, and Charles Lawson, on the holiest of days, left behind both carnage and unanswered questions. These crimes are not mere statistics. They force us to ask unsettling questions. How much resentment must build before it erupts into violence? How dangerous is it when radical beliefs take root in vulnerable minds? And why does betrayal within a family cut deeper than any other crime? Communities that mourn these tragedies still carry scars. Candles have been lit, songs written, legends told, yet nothing has erased the images of children stolen, parents betrayed, or holidays drowned in blood. In retelling these stories, we do not glorify the killers. We honor the victims and remind ourselves that safety even within the home should never be taken for granted. So tonight, as you turn off the lights, remember the Lawson Christmas tree glowing in a blood-stained room, or the abandoned Easter baskets in Ohio. These are not just stories of the past, they are warnings, etched in blood, that love can be salvation, but in the grip of darkness, it can also become annihilation.